like to welcome on stage Monsieur Guillaume Trapp, the Science and Education Program Lead of the Fondation Jeunes Scientifiques Luxembourg, to introduce our next speaker.
Good afternoon. Boys and girls, it's an honor and privilege to introduce our next speaker, our keynote speaker of today, Mr. Naoufal Bahlawane. Yes, he deserved it. I believe Naoufal's presentation and experience will be extremely beneficial to all of you, especially for three reasons. First reason, Naoufal is not only a research scientist, a materials scientist, but he's also an engineer. He worries about the applications of his research. And he even recently started his own startup, his own entrepreneur career. And this is not so common, so I'm sure this will be very helpful for the next Einstein among you or the next Edisons, right? Secondly, Naoufal is a globetrotter. He has worked on several continents, at least 3, from Morocco to Germany, passing by Japan. And when you speak with him, you feel like he integrated all of these very different cultures and took the best of all of them. And I wish you will do the same by the end of this week. And lastly, Naoufal is the father of 3 young daughters. All of them were young scientists. They participated in our national contest. And oh, by the way, Naoufal was also one of the judges of the contest. Of course, not at the same time as his daughters participated, as you can tell. But so he is our best producers of young scientists. And just for that, he is amazing. Now, I want to conclude this little tribute by a small anecdote, just to show you what a dedicated scientist Naoufal is, and also what a gentleman he is. So a few years ago when I met Naoufal, he was doing, and he still does, he was doing super black coatings. He will tell you more about this in a minute. So basically he would cover materials, metallic materials, with extremely absorbent layers of nanoparticles. And I was very interested in that for exhibition purposes. And so I asked Naoufal, would you agree to coat some objects in metals with your coating, and we could do an exhibition about that? And he said, oh yeah, sure, provide me the shapes. And so I came up to him with 3 shapes. A cube of aluminum that I got cut in a workshop, very easy to produce. Then I brought a potato-shaped something in metal that was also very easy to produce. I just needed a hammer, basically, to bash a cube. And lastly, I thought, well, let's produce a sphere, right? But the problem is, it's very difficult to machine a sphere in a workshop. So I had to buy it. So I bought a sphere, just like this one. This is in French what we call une boule de pétanque, a pétanque ball. It's a French sport, a funny sport, by the way. But anyways, this is a metal sphere. So I handed my sphere to Naoufal. And long and behold, a few weeks later, we discovered, well, actually, Naoufal discovered that the ball was itself a nasty bomb when put in his reactor. In other words, the thing just exploded. It was extremely dangerous. And when I realized what a mistake this was, I came to Naoufal and said, oh, Naoufal, how are you doing? And he was there, that's okay, no problem, all with scars all over his face, oh, that's okay, I'm fine. And he just peacefully handed me a research paper in which it was explained why this nasty ball actually exploded. In doing so, we made a discovery, right? Well, at least we discovered other people had the same problem before us, right? Anyways, here's a man who's ready to risk his life both for science and for an old friend. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Naoufal Bahlawane.
Well, thank you very much. Well, standing in front of you is quite scary, so I'm very happy to be here, very glad, and it is really a very nice moment to share with so smart people here. What I would like to mention is, well, first of all, I would like to thank the Foundation for giving me the opportunity to come here and to share this time with you. I have selected one of the topics to share with you, and I will try to go through without showing any single equation. So we will go through how the ideas develop and how things take its fate. So let's go for super black coatings for space applications. If you look at this slide, which is giving the outlook, it looks a little bit freestyle style. Be secure, it is not really freestyle. There are some structures in there. I will start first by giving you the context. This will enable you to comprehend a little bit the initial status and why we need this kind of research. And then we will move to something which go from ideation to qualification. So it is basically where the science or scientifics or scientists feel comfortable. So it is something which is the daily life of science. And then we will go to the place where something comes out which is interesting, and then you need to bring it to the market. And here you come really out of your comfort zone, and you have to face that. And this is something you wished for many years, so it is at the same time scary and very exciting. So basically, we will go from challenge to life as usual for scientists, and then we'll go to the non-comfort zone. Okay, so most of research topics that you undertake are based on your intuition. But this project is not based on intuition, so it is a real need that has been expressed. And this is the reason why I'm starting my presentation with this slide for European Space Agency, the ESA. So the ESA has a mission which is very well defined. So it is kind of shaping the development of European space development or capabilities to secure that the investments provides its objectives. So the ESA has or employs more than 2,500 researchers and administrators. And they operate quite large budgets, so several billions of dollars every year. So in 2024, they have operated 7.7 billion euro. So these resources are coming from the member states that are highlighted in the map. They have different tasks. So some of them are to elaborate and implement, let's say, European policy, but also industrial policy. They also gather with large industrials in Europe to make up kind of roadmap for development. But they also secure that all these developments and programs and activities run the way they should. So they are involved in every single project. They help in the coordination. And the start of super black coatings was something around 2013. So at the end of 2013, the European Space Agency has published a call for applicants. So they requested the scientific community to come out with new ideas to develop new super black coatings. So in this document here, you have a lot of information that come from what is needed for and also how the project should be run. So they give you a timeline. So it is a project that should run for 2 years, for instance. It should have these milestones and this deliverable. So it is very thorough. So they think a lot so that the project provides exactly what is needed for. And then they also define for you what success means. Here, the success was, for instance, how black the surface should be. So it means If light comes perpendicular to the surface, you should absorb at least 99% of light. And the second one is how the behavior, this reflection behavior is. It means this 1 or 1.5% of light which is reflected, how it should be reflected. So it means not more than 5% in that direction. They give you also more information about which kind of object you would like to code. So whatever you come out as process, it should be useful for very sharp edges. It should be useful for complex 3D shapes, so that they direct you, so that you don't spend a lot of time developing something which is not useful for the community later. So these are how they define and they confine so that your effort will be focused. And there is also some technological aspect they directly towards, so something like how adherent it should be and how capacity of absorbing gases, and also something about operation temperature, something which I was not aware of before, which is just when you have a satellite, if it just turns or tilts around itself, the temperature can change by more than 200 degrees C. And any material you bring to that environment should withstand such kind of change of temperatures. So all this is explained in there. So the head of my department just gave me the call and say, oh, Naoufal, I'm sure you'll have a good idea for that. Say, I don't know, just have time to read it. And then I started going to the state of the art to look in what is existing in the market. The first I found are very advanced paint formulations. They contain nanoparticles and nanostructures and so on. And here I found out that there are many ways of applying these paints. So they can be applied by brushing, dipping, or electrostatic spray. So this is something I didn't know before. So I know how we paint cars, but what I have learned by looking at these processes is they can include electrical charge in the paint itself, and then when they spray it, if your object is grounded, then this very tiny droplet will fly to that surface, and they make a very high quality of film. So I was very impressed to learn new things about how we can apply paint. So, and something which is very important, I have seen that these paints can be really, really black. So there are some of them that they have extraordinary capacity to absorb light. But it's still, they are not useful for the process. Because if you have a paint and you have a very sharp edge, then you will form droplets on that edge. And that is a killer for the application. So it will reflect light much more than if you do not apply the paint. So for that reason, they didn't want to have paints. So this was very clear from the beginning. So I continued a little bit more and see which kind of processes are used also in this kind of industries, and I found these electrochemical processes. So these are processes where you put your metal in an electrolyte, which is very engineered for the purpose, and you apply a sequence of electrical stimulations. What happens is that the surface will become rough, and you will be able to introduce some pigments on the surface, and you get a black surface. When I looked into this process, it's fascinating. I learned a lot of things, but none of what I have found has the capacity to absorb as much light as the ESA wants. So it is also not something that can be useful. But more than that, it is only applicable to metals. So if you have ceramics or whatever, then you cannot apply it. And this is a handicap. And then I started looking at what comes closer to what I do, because my field of expertise is dry processes for the surface treatment. The first I have investigated was about plasma spraying. So here you have a powder that you introduce in high velocity gas, and then you bring to it a lot of energy. It can be plasma or flame. So these particles will be extremely hot, with very high velocity. When they hit the surface, they will flatten and adhere on the surface. So now, if you engineer the powder you want, then you can make black coatings. And these black coatings are used in space industry, but much more in the thermal management, not for the optical applications that the ESA wants, just because they are not black enough for that purpose. Then I have found something which to me, it was a little bit depressing because it was the direction where I was thinking at the beginning. So using the chemical vapor deposition process, which is in what I'm investigating most. And here is to use chemical vapor deposition. So you introduce vapor of a gas, and then you manage the conditions so that some film or structures can grow on the surface if you give it enough thermal energy. There is a company that is, I'd say, active for more than 15 years at the time of this call, and they were commercializing these products. So it has an amazing optical properties, absorbs 99.9 whatever of light, so it is really, really, really dark. But it has some limitations. So the limitation it has is they need high temperature, but it's still directional process because they have to heat from one side and to cool from the other. This makes it a little bit more complex to apply. And more complex than that is they were extremely fragile. So it means that a lot of people were, or industries were interested to use that coatings, but once it is applied, it does not withstand vibration tests. So if you apply a vibration test on it, then it will be delaminated. And then I found this process here based on physical vapor deposition. So this is one of the most reliable one used today in space industry. So it has a very good combination of mechanical strengths, of applicability, temperature, and so on. The only thing is that the optical requirements that are needed for the ESA are above what this kind of coating can offer. That's the only thing. So once I went through the literature, I was a little bit intimidated because you learn a lot of things. And then my first task was somehow just to convince my boss that's not a good idea. There are very strong people in there. There are many good solutions in there, and I don't see how we can change the world. So things are already established. And I spent a lot of energy to convince him to step back. And I succeeded. And then he said, okay, if you don't feel it, don't do it. Then the stress came out. So now I have to think by myself without stress. So it brought it out from a job to a personal challenge. One of the things that gave me a lot of inspiration was to see for what these kind of coatings are used. And when I looked at the satellites and I read a lot about it and say that, well, there are many optical devices in a satellite. You can find some observation cameras. They're used for weather forecast. They're used for safety. They're used for a lot of things. You have some hyperspectral cameras. These are used for detecting pollution and, looking at transport of some kind of dust or whatever. So it is much more because it gives you more spectral informations. But there are also things that I was not aware of, like, that a satellite needs to calibrate itself. It needs some black body reference in it, and it should be as black as possible. And satellite needs to know where it is and how it is oriented, and for that they need star trackers. And there are also some shift that we see nowadays that going from radio frequency communication to optical communication. And all this makes optical devices more and more relevant for space industries, and super black coating is needed for every single component that I have mentioned here, and much more that I don't know yet. So now, why we need the black coating? So if you take a camera and you make nasty photo, then it looks like this. So we have parasitic light. So it's light that you don't want to comes to your camera and gives you some features that blur your image, and you no longer capture the object you want. And to solve this problem, then there is a solution. You take every single component of your camera and you paint it black. And then every parasitic light that comes into your camera will be reflected maybe twice, and then most of it will be absorbed. And then you have good quality images. And when we look at all the sophisticated devices I have shown before, the problematic is the same. So you need to have all this parasitic light switched off. And for that purpose, you need super black coatings. So now let's go to this ideation phase and away from stress, just thinking of the problematic by itself and going back to my personal experience. So I was working in the chemical vapor deposition process, I have told you before, and this is the process which is central in microelectronic industry. So it is used to make transistors and all these electronic devices. And one of my, wishes, and the wish of all people that work in that domain, is to bring some impact to semiconductor industry, okay? And when you look at the challenges they have, one of the biggest challenge is to make metal films. Very thin metal films that conduct electricity and can be applied on high aspect ratio surfaces. This challenge is there for many years. There are some solutions, but the device are getting smaller and smaller, and then the challenge keep growing, and it's still a bottleneck. So what I have done at the time is I just looked at why the metal films don't grow smooth as oxides and nitrides, and then you find that the problem is in the nucleation. All processes that have been used, they focus on hydrogen reduction. And hydrogen reduction of metal organics gives some nuclei on the surface, and then these nuclei will start growing. But the coalescence that will give us electrical conduction comes much later. And it means that the film needs to be almost 50 or 60 nanometer before it starts conducting electricity. And this is exactly what should be hindered. At that time, I just thought about hydrogen reduction as being the problem. So I moved to something that I was calling catalytic dehydrogenations of alcohol. So it is a completely different process. The people in semiconductor were not used to such kind of things. And it gives something very special. So you could have film of nickel that conduct electricity well below the limit that was known there. So you can go to 25 or 30 nanometers of film that conduct electricity. For copper, which is also very useful in microelectronics, we could go down to 10 nanometers to produce film that conduct electricity. So basically, I was extremely excited and very happy. But I was very disappointed because I didn't find the resonance from the semiconductor industry I was expecting. So there is still something which I have not yet understood. So based on that, I said, okay, I have made the thinnest film that conduct electricity and nobody wants them. Let's make the thickest metal film that that will not conduct electricity. And here I was just challenging myself and giving challenge to myself. So it is a pure fun. Nobody needed at the time where I was searching on that. And here I was just looking at combining the process I talked about before, plus a process to make oxides. So the chemistry I have used is very compatible, and there is no other process that can make that combination. And this was one of my motivation. So what I have done is just I made this composite film, and the beauty of it is that once you have these metal nanoparticles, you have maybe 4 or 5 nanometer particle that swallow light. And this process comes at a very well-defined frequency. So it means you have a wavelength of several hundreds of nanometers is swallowed in 4 nanometers particle. So what happens is you convert light to a plasmon. So this plasmon is you have your particles and the electrons are shaking around. So this is an excited state. After some times, it comes back and it gives you light. But it gives it in a different direction, and the light that you get is colored. Well, it's funny, it's beautiful. That was it. So I continued showing that it can be grown on metals, can be grown on glass, and so on. And this was kind of a fun research that I was reporting in some conferences. And then there is a company from Stockholm came and asked me, would you be able to apply such kind of coatings on dark gray inserts? Well, at the beginning I told them, why should we do that? They said, okay, look, in these inserts, we can use them 8 times. So every single edge can be used. But most of the time we use just 3 or 4 and then we throw it away because we're afraid if we use it again, then we will have an already used edge and then it will damage the part. So this, just by having color coding that will show you where the insert has been used, will enable us something like 50% increase of efficiency. And there is also another point is that we would like to recycle them and we want to recycle inserts that have the same compositions, and we need to know them, and they all have the same color. They have given me more arguments why they need that, and they have paid so that I can make research on that. And then the answer was, yes, it works. So something like 100 or 200 nanometer film on this very dark gray can make them colorful, and they have tested them for mechanical testing, and they work pretty well. So one of the biggest criteria they had is they want to have colors that they can be baked to 900 or 860 degrees C without changing. And if you go to Luxembourg Institute of Science and Technology, you might find still my samples that are there for more than 8 years, and they still have the same color with crème brûlée burner so that you can test them up to 900 degrees C. They are still very robust. So from a fun research, now I have a product which brings or attracts the interest of cutting tool industry, this one, but also for architectural glass and for luxury goods. And the interest is still there today. So they're still interested to make this at the industrial level. So this was my first experience. So what I want to do, what I thought it was exciting, and where the excitement was. So they were completely different stories. So when working with these metal thin films, one of my biggest pride was that my film are extremely pure. So I have shown using some highly sophisticated analytical techniques to show that they have no carbon and they have no oxygen, everything is fine. And I was expecting people to celebrate that, but they didn't. So here it was also a disappointment from my side. And then what I was turning on is to say, how if I can control and introduce contamination in a controlled way? Would it be interesting for somebody? So it is a kind of thought I was taking. But basically, when I was at this stage, I was already thinking about super black coatings. So I just brought the same process. I tuned the chemistry so that I have very significant incorporation of carbon, and then I used the combination with the oxide phase. Exactly the same approach I have used for the colored coatings. So this was the theory. So what I want to have beautiful layer which is transparent. Inside I want to have metal films, and every metal nanoparticles I want it to be surrounded by a shell of carbon. So it is a dreamer situation, but to do it you need a reactor. So I have conceived a CVD reactor, a very small one that I have made and that I can operate the way I want. So it is handy. You can manipulate the equipment the way you want. So this was made based on the experience I had in Germany and the one I have established also in Luxembourg Institute of Science and Technology. The first, and this is not a joke, the first film I have done, when I opened the reactor, I took this photo. Because I said, shit, it worked, but I forgot to put the samples. Then I said, okay, at least I will have photo. And then I say, okay, if it has worked the first time, then it should work a second time. And when I brought my sample to the reactor, I have displaced the other one. So the sample was there. It's just I was not able to see it. So black it was. So from here it started, and it became research with the rational thinking, with very thorough characterization, evaluation of the properties, writing report, and so. So starting from this point, it was research as usual. At the end, we could make some demonstrations, 3D demonstrations, and also demonstrations with real satellite parts. We could go through space qualification. So space qualification is not only about optical properties, it is about aging, it's about how it reacts to atomic oxygen, how it reacts to ionizing radiation, how it reacts to... So it should be really fully qualified for the application, and this is what we have done. So the film was favorable, and all tests were positive. And here is just to go a little bit beyond. So we had this super black coating that was, from the chemical point of view, developed, and then we could make a combination between structure and coatings. And here what we see is the visible reflection. So if you come perpendicular to the surface, you have a reflection of 0.5%. But if you go at 60 degrees as angle from the normal, then you have also 0.5% of reflection. This is very unique. And this analysis shows exactly that, but in a scientific way. So it shows that if you bring the light from perpendiculars and you have 0.5%, but it is spread equally over the space. If you go very grazing incidence, then you have 0.5%, but most of this 0.5% is backward reflected or backward diffuse reflected and forward diffuse reflected. That's why you see these two spots in the two sides. But this is something that has been done in Thales Alenia Space, and they certified to me that this performance is something that they have never seen before. So it is extraordinary for them. And here it is just a combination of structure and the black coatings. So it is just like how nature does that. Okay, so now if we just look at the journey for this research, it started in 2014. We had this support from the European Space Agency and the Luxembourg Space Agency. And from the first funding, we had the first architecture of coatings with the first patent. And then we had the second round of funding, where a second formulation of coating was developed. So we have two super black coatings that have been developed. And then we have this combination with structure that came in the third step. And now we are almost done by the industrial de-risking of the process. And we already created the company ready to jump into the market. So while coming to that, then you start being scary, and then you say, okay, you have to learn something about how to deal with the market. And there are a lot of questions that I don't know how to. So this is, it was 1.5 years or almost 2 years where I came back to school to make another master. So looking at the management performance, scaling up operations, so a lot of things that I have learned before jumping into the market. So the people you see here are my team. So I was heading a small team of people that work on super black coatings, which we took as being a model project to work on and to look at the market and so on. So this was close to the, I'd say, at the end of the year. So you took this photo for our souvenirs. Okay, so I spoke about super black coatings for space, but it is also used for naval applications, for defense, But I was very surprised to see some industries coming and asking for super black coatings, and these industries are making watches. And it seems that the market for luxury is even bigger than the one for space. This is something that I didn't know before, and you only know when you step into the market and you talk to people. But more than that, you can go to autonomous driving, then you will need to have cameras that have very high performance so that you have night vision, day visions, and having anything that you can see outside should be brighter than your reference black body inside. And for that reason, you need some reference inside your devices. And also for, let's say, portable devices and so on. So the market is more than what was thought at the beginning as being just optical devices for satellites. Yeah, so we have created the technology which is at this stage more than what people need, but it is in the direction of what people would need in the future. We have protected it, and we are positioned well in the market. So most of the industries we target are around us here in Europe. And this is very important because this coating has a dual use, and exportation for anything that have a dual use, so military and civilian, it is complicated. So it is very important to have the production of these coatings inside Europe. So this is just to end up the slide for the science. I have prepared a couple of slides regarding myself. So just to introduce myself to you, and then we can take up any questions you might have. Okay, so I have been graduated in Morocco, in Casablanca. So it was Université Hassan II. Just to give you an idea, so when you make your high school study in Morocco, at least at the time where I have been there, everything that relates to chemistry, mathematics, physics, so on, it was taught in Arabic. And once you go to the university, you have a sudden swap from Arabic to French. So it is really brutal, and we lost a lot of people because of that linguistic swap. Anyway, universities in Morocco, they have a wall surrounding them. This is something which was to me very normal until I went to France, where I say, where is the university? Where is the wall? So it was no wall around the university. So this was the first thing that surprised me when I arrived to France. So in France, I have done my Master 2 in physical-chemical analysis, and then a PhD in material engineering. And when it comes to education, the next diploma I had was habilitation. So the habilitation is a kind of acknowledgement that you are able to supervise PhD students and you are able to coordinate large scientific research. And then this was in 2008, and it was in Germany. And then I have made the Veneer-Ligandi, and this is another acknowledgement that you can teach physical chemistry at the university. It's two different diplomas. So the habilitation was, of course, in English because scientific vehicle was English as language, but the Veneer-Ligandi, I had to make some teachings and also to make this kind of examination at the end in German. And what I have talked about is the master that I have done very recently in Paris, and this was just like if you lost 20 years, so you feel much, much younger, starting to learn new topics and so on. So when it comes to the research experience, I think the first payment I got because I'm doing research was in Japan. So there I have been in Kyushu National Industrial Research Institute, where I have spent 2 years of research before moving to the university. But once I had my first daughter, and after a couple of months, and say maybe we have to go to Europe again. So we moved to Germany, so I have to learn another language there, and started as Alexander von Humboldt Fellow for 1 year, and then I took let's say, the supervision of CVD group. So I was assistant professor, and at the time where I received my habilitation, then my position turned to academic senior counselor or associate, if you want. So after that, I came to Luxembourg in 2011. So at the time, it was Centre de Recherche Publique, Gabriel Lippmann, where I have started making research. And after fusion, then it became Luxembourg Institute of Science and Technology, and my position was also changed the title to, say, Lead Research and Technology Associate. So I had a chance to be invited as lecturer in University of Luxembourg, where I taught for 3 years thermodynamics, but I also was called for teaching surface chemistry at Chinese University, Zhejiang University in Hangzhou. And now just started my journey as, let's say, founder of Strip Protect, a startup for super black coatings, and I'm also working in Oerlikon Balzers. So Oerlikon is a company which count more than 12,000 employees worldwide. They're global. They work in coatings, coating service. And I'm having the task of introducing new technologies into the... So I have a lot of freedom in an industrial structure which is normally very rigid, very big. So I'm a kind of entrepreneur inside this big company. Yeah, so when it comes to collaboration, I'm very proud of being a member of the international board of the EuroCVD ALE. I was chairing that community for 2 years. So it was a period where the conference was brought here to Luxembourg. And I'm also a member of the evaluation panel for the French ANR, so Agence Nationale de Recherche. I'm also reviewing projects for the European Council. And I review habilitations, PhDs, and also some articles, as all scientists do. Yeah, and I'm also a member for a scientific committee of several conferences that come in different stages of the year. And just to summarize, education has been done in these 3 countries, Morocco and France and Germany. Teaching is done in China and Luxembourg, and research I have done it in Japan, France, Luxembourg, and Germany. Just to finish up a little bit about myself as a family, so I have 3 daughters, as it was mentioned before. So the 3 of them, let's say, have participated in this contest several times. The 2 biggest ones are in medical studies, almost at the end of their study, and the little one started now 2 years ago, mechanical engineering in Switzerland. Yeah, so we love extremes, so going from 48 degrees to minus 48 degrees. So it is something that we are very excited about, and we are always happy to discover new countries and new panoramas. So by this, I would like to end up my presentation. I'm very sorry if I was long. If you have any questions, do not hesitate. It can be French or in English or Arabic or whatever, or German.
Bonjour, je suis Nezar Larmam, je voudrais parler en français. J'ai une question sur un tableau que tu as présenté. Il y avait θ est égal, par exemple, à 0 degré. Qu'est-ce que ça veut dire θ? Est-ce que c'est température ou bien c'est autre chose? Ouais, ça me bien.
Voilà. Ça, c'est l'angle par rapport à la normale. Donc, quand on a une surface comme ça, et on vient de façon perpendiculaire, là, on va parler d'un angle de 0. Et normalement, c'est plutôt facile d'absorber les radiations quand elles sont normales à la surface. Par contre, quand on est très rasant, et là, on a des θ qui sont très grandes, si on arrive à 40, 60 ou 75, là, ça devient extrêmement difficile pour les revêtements pour absorber la lumière. Et c'est là où on voit les spécifications qui sont dépendantes de l'angle d'incidence des radiations. Et quand on dit, voilà, il va falloir absorber 99% des radiations, si on ne donne pas l'angle, il y a quelque chose qui manque. C'est pour ça que dans le tableau, il y avait ces deux éléments-là.
Bonjour.
Bonjour.
C'est Hamid Teban, superviseur de la délégation du Maroc. Nous venons de la ville de Fès et de Meknès. Moi-même, je suis cofondateur d'un Fab Lab pédagogique à Fès. Et notre association, c'est l'association des petits débrouillards de Fès. Nous essayons un petit peu de développer la culture scientifique à l'échelle de notre région. Ma question, elle est un petit peu peut-être qui sort du texte de votre présentation. Pourquoi la fabrication des circuits intégrés est limitée à, je crois, 3 entreprises, 4 entreprises, alors qu'il y a des chercheurs, des compétences comme vous, qui peuvent peut-être, développer ça, pas seulement dans les pays européens, mais ailleurs, où c'est difficile pour un pays africain d'avoir cette technologie.
Alors, la question, c'est pourquoi ne pas s'intéresser à d'autres laboratoires pour s'inspirer de leur... de leurs résultats scientifiques, c'est ça? C'est ça la question. En fait, c'est juste, j'ai reformulé la...
Could you maybe repeat the question in English?
Pourquoi la fabrication des circuits intégrés est limitée entre 3 ou 4 entreprises? Je crois qu'il y a une américaine, une taïwanaise, une hollandaise.
Oui.
Alors qu'il y a vraiment des physiciens, des nanophysiciens qui sont partout.
OK. La
Dr.
réponse...
Bahlawane? Sorry, could you maybe reply in English in order to include all of our guests?
All right, that's okay. So the question was why for microelectronic devices we have just a handful of industrial producers, why it is not something that can be spread over. And I'm not someone who is really in the industry of microelectronics to give you the right answer, but from my perspective, the CapEx, so the capital expenditure is enormous. So once you have, when you talk about a chip where you have transistors, you have to grow metals, high dielectric materials, low K materials, you have to make patterning, and one chip can be more than 200 or 300 steps. And every single step needs a machine. And the machines I know are more than 2-3 million euro each. And it is, the capital expenditure is enormous, and this forces them to work in a certain way. So to me, it is not easy to afford that such of expenditure if you have spread technology over the world. So you have to centralize somehow so that you can cope with that. So this is my understanding. I hope it answers. So, en français, c'est juste question de CAPEX. C'est vraiment le budget qu'il va falloir pour mettre en œuvre les procédés, pour les utiliser, pour avoir un device à la fin, sont tellement énormes qu'ils ne peuvent pas se permettre une décentralisation, ou parfois quand il y a des nouveautés quelque part qu'ils veulent intégrer, même ça, ce n'est pas toujours facile. Et just to swap again, and I was extremely disappointed because what I have found about metal deposition, so on, was not taken over by the industry. And believe it or not, at the time where I was making the slides for this presentation, I just realized that all my PhD students and my postdocs work today in semiconductor industry. So instead of taking the technology, they take people. Welcome.
Bonsoir.
Bonsoir.
Thank you so much for this very nice and interesting presentation. So this is Hatem Sliman, PhD in mechanical engineering. So actually, I started my own startup.
Okay.
I think you are making proof that going through making money is the best way, is not being just PhD. So why did you swapping between PhD and going to entrepreneurship way? So is that any message behind? So
this swap from mindset came for me at the time where I decided to go to HEC Paris for the business school. So I was forcing myself to go there to learn. And once I started learning, my mindset has completely changed. I don't see research as being place to have fun. And now I see it as a place where the country takes tax money and they said, okay, with this tax money, we will provide opportunity for the next generation to create something. And it is a duty, a heavy duty on you. So it means as long as you remain there, you have not satisfied what is meant for. And basically, at the end of your journey, you should come out from there. It is what, I have to say, that is exactly what should happen at the end. This mindset was not my own before. So to me, it was research is fun, and they have made research just to combine fun with profession. So I was just having fun doing what I was doing. But once you go to business school, your mindset change. And
totally agree.
For
Thank
me,
you so
it was the turning point.
Thank you so much.
I see that we have one question up there. I don't know if we have time, but otherwise, Dr. Bahlawane, maybe you could answer questions afterwards from the students. Sure. Yeah. Okay. So thank you so much for your time and for this amazing speech.